Actually, our storyteller is an absolutely amazing person. I've seen her in live several times because she is the co-founder of Backyard Story Night. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Meg Mattingly.
I will not be sitting on that. Ooh, sort of real. Oh, all right. So I was sort of counting. There's more than 10 people here. I'm 13. So wait, go us. You can't see anyone, so that's great. Awesome. So yeah, my name's Meg. When I was 24, I sort of had this realization that I needed to leave Austin and go find myself. And so my way of doing that was moving to a farm in North Carolina. This was a sustainable farm, really small, called Old Oak Homestead. And the owner of this farm, her name was Barb. She was a 65-year-old woman that was this very eccentric filmmaker that had won an Oscar back in 1991 and was still riding the waves of that. So very excited about that. So when she sort of wooed me over the phone coming to her farm, and I was like, oh, she's like cool crazy. But then when I got there, I was like, oh, no, she's crazy. Like flat out crazy. So my first week in being there, Barb asked me to take her to Costco, and sort of the other people on the farm were like giving me dead eyes, like, don't do it, don't do it. And I was like, no, it's great, like we'll bond, it'll be so wonderful. And so 3 hours later, after being at Costco, we're driving home, and she starts talking about how when in the 60s she was a topless dancer, and she was really proud of that. And as I'm driving her, she reaches over and feels my boob, and was like, you do all right. She also, while I was working there at the farm, I also worked part-time at the local co-op grocery store, and she loved that because it gave her the opportunity to have me buy all of her homeopathic medicine for her. And so she just a range of issues that she loved to send me to town to get her medicine. One of them in particular I remember was she had a mouth fungus around her mouth, and so she specifically asked me to go to town and get her homeopathic medicine for her mouth fungus. And so I frequently had to go into the co-op grocery store and say, do you guys have any homeopathic medicine for fill in the blank? But having to tell people, like, it's for mouth fungus, it's not for me, it's not for me. Like, it gets sort of old when you have to say that like 10 times every week. Like, it's not for me, I promise, it's not for me. But sort of this quintessential, I don't know if that's the right word, Barb story that really sticks with me is when she got it in her mind that we had to kill this possum. So she had 2 cats, and she had noticed that one of her cats was sort of looking like roughed up, having some issues. And so Barb was like, I think it's a possum, we need to get a trap, we need to get this possum. And so we asked the city for a trap. We set it up, and the next morning, lo and behold, there is a possum in the trap. And so Barb was very worried about her cat's safety, and so she's like, we have to get rid of it. Like, we cannot let it go, we have to get rid of it. And so she sent Matt, one of my friends that was living on the farm with us, over to the neighbor's house on the bike, and she was like, bring this bag of greens over to Tim, which I commonly refer to Naked Tim. That's a whole other story. To Tim and his wife Linda. She's like, bring this bag of greens from the garden over to them, give it to them, and they'll let you borrow their pink guns they have. It was Linda's. It was this tiny little revolver, and it was pink. And so Matt like rides his bike over with the basket and like gives her the greens, and she gives him the gun, and he puts it in the basket, and he rides back home. And so I was actually currently being punished. I don't remember what I had done, but she liked to punish me for things. And so I was, my job for the afternoon was to make fire starters with the lint from her dryer that we weren't allowed to use. And so I was like angrily making these lint, these like fire starters with lint and candle wax, and I saw this fun like happening in the distance with a gun. And so I sort of look over, and I can hear all this because it's not that large of an area. And she's like, okay, Matt, I'm gonna lift the cage, and on the count of 3, you're gonna shoot, but you need to close your eyes when you shoot because it's a safety issue. And poor Matt, he had never used a gun, and so he was like, all right, I'm gonna close my eyes. Barb told me I'm gonna close my eyes. And so she's like, 1, 2, 3. She lifts the cage, and then he closes his eyes, and he misses the possum, but he like grazes the side of it. And so all of a sudden in the distance, I see a possum like screeching in the woods, and then I see Matt running after it, and I see Barb running after him, and then I see Adam, this other guy that was living on the farm, running after her. So I was like, fuck this, I'm not gonna sit here and make stupid fire starters, or what's going on? So I run over, and Barb's like, okay. The possum has climbed a tree. She's like, Adam, go get the big saw and the ladder. He's like, Matt, go get a blanket. And so they're like devising this plan. And so Adam proceeds to set the ladder up next against the tree, starts cutting the branch down that the possum has climbed onto. And the plan was, when the branch fell, Barb was going to leap on top of it with the blanket, and Matt was going to shoot it in the head. I forgot to mention that Barb never really wore a bra or underwear, and just these like flowy old lady dresses. So it was like really exciting. Like, what are we going to see? All of the time. Like, we went skinny dipping all the time, but she was just like always showing her boobs to everyone. So that wasn't that exciting of a thing. But anyway, so they start cutting the tree down, and it actually works. This crazy plan actually works. She jumps on top of the possum with a blanket, and you hear, shoot it, shoot it! It's kind of like that Jurassic, like, shoot her, shoot her! Just the best. So anyway, the possum dies, and she's like, and then all of a sudden, she has this like weird moment where she's like, oh my God, we weren't supposed to do this. And she starts sort of freaking out because she's crazy, and she's like, we have to dispose of the possum. And so there's this plan. She's like, well, we can't bury it because then it'll bring coyotes and things like that. She's like, we have to eat it. And so, anyway, so we proceed to skin the possum, and we put it in a pressure cooker, and we cook it. Luckily that night, everyone, we were going to a potluck down the road, and so we bring surprise stew for everyone to eat. And just in case anyone's curious about possum, it is the most disgusting meat in the world. It's like you're eating a giant rat, and it is greasy and foul and terrible. And no one really ate it, but we told no one what was in it. What was in this stew. And so I lived on this farm for 7 months. I actually ended up getting kicked off by Crazy Barb later, which was, again, another story. But I learned a lot of things and things I didn't really expect to learn. I think the biggest thing I was very surprised that I learned while living on the farm was how to make possum stew. Thank you very much.